Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Tuesday, April 19th. This is your daily Buckeye fix. I'm Tom Moore. The Notre Dame game is in 137 days, the game against Michigan in 221 days. Yesterday, we talked about some of the recruiting results from last weekend's spring game. Today, we're going to talk about that game itself. You're going to kind of wrap up the game with some interviews with head coach Ryan Day and defensive coordinator Jim Knowles. As always, these clips are courtesy of the Ohio State University Athletics Department. We're going to start with the big story of the spring, the defense. They obviously didn't do anything too exotic on Saturday, but afterwards, they sounded pretty happy with what they did do.
Yeah, today was very, very basic, as you could see, on both sides of the ball. But what I liked was just the physicality and guys running around and tackling, and that was something that we wanted to get done in this game. But I thought you saw that. Certainly the depth of the D line is definitely going to be a strength of ours. But it was good to see those guys run around and tackle. We'll take a look at the film and see. But it was more about fundamentals and tackling and playing with effort today.
Spring is a time when young players get a chance to really make their first impressions on the coaches and then on the fan base at the spring game. There were some young defensive backs who did exactly that on Saturday. Jordan Hancock and Kai Stokes. Here's what Day had to say about those guys.
Yeah, all those guys have had a really good spring. I've been very impressed with the corners, with the safeties, and they showing up and get their hands on balls and being aggressive. And I think you saw some of that today. You saw the potential there. We certainly have a long way to go as we get into May and June and July and then in August. But I think they've really grabbed on to what Coach Walton and Coach Eliano have been doing with them. They're playing with confidence. They're aggressive, and you can see their talent level.
On the other side of the ball, another young guy who made a big impression with the fan base and the coaching staff as well on Saturday was Evan Pryor. He had two of the biggest plays of the day, a long touchdown run and a long reception and a wheel route as well. So what can he bring to the offense this fall?
He's had a very good spring. He has a lot of wiggle, like you said. He can change direction in short areas. He's good out of the backfield. You can see he can catch the ball, and so he gives a little wiggle in there, which is nice. It's a little bit of a change of pace with the offense, and if he continues to grow and he can hang on to the ball, then he's going to have an impact on this offense this year.
Someone who is not really a young guy anymore and who definitely has made his first and second and maybe third impressions already is CJ Stroud. But, the spring is obviously time when you can continue to develop and continue to grow your game. So where has Day seen growth from CJ Stroud over the course of the spring?
Well, I think CJ's been very consistent. He's very competitive. And I think one of the things that he's done a really good job of, at least recently, is take what the defense gives you. And Jim does a really good job of changing up looks. And there's just times where he's going to drop 8 and say, you have to check the ball down. And as a quarterback, especially somebody as competitive as CJ, he has to force himself to say, okay, I'm going to take what the defense gives me, take the check down, make 5 or 6 yards, and move on. And I think he's learning to do that. And I think that's been great. His leadership's been excellent. I think he's had a very, very good spring. And, he even wanted to get back in there on the last drive because he wanted to, get out there and play. And that's just the way he is. He's one of the more competitive guys I've been around.
We all know that Brian Hartline is one of the best, if not the best recruiter in the country. And his wide receiver room is just kind of perpetually stocked with 5-star talent every single year. But still, that wide receiver unit is replacing Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave this year. And no matter how much young talent you have, that isn't easy. But, there is still a bunch of that young talent in that wide receiver room. Jackson Smith-Njigba did not play much on Saturday, and Julian Fleming didn't play at all. That was just a minor injury, nothing to be super concerned about, just a kind of a minor day-to-day kind of thing, and they just were kind of playing it safe there. So what did Day see from guys like Emeka Egbuka and Jaden Ballard and Marvin Harrison Jr. on Saturday, and what did he see from those guys, plus Julian Fleming, over the course of the spring?
I think Emeka's had a very good spring. Julian's had a very good spring. I think Marvin's been very strong, and Xavier Johnson's been really good for us as well. The rest of the depth is continuing to build and grow. Jaden Ballard. So the more those guys can build depth for us, you want to find one, then you want to find two, and eventually you want to get to about 6 guys that you feel good about putting into the game, which is where we've been in the last couple of years. I think we're still kind of working on getting to 6, but these guys are working hard. I think for the top 4 or 5 guys, we feel pretty solid about, and these over the next couple of months they have to continue to grind because it's going to be important. We have a couple guys coming in the summer, some signees. But depth is very important. We're looking at that all over the field in terms of different positions, and there's some positions that I think are more deep than others. But that's the challenge you run into with the way college football is right now.
Next up is a two-parter, or two quickies in the parlance of the legendary Tim May. First is Day walking away from the spring feeling like they have three running backs they can use with Trevion Henderson and Mayan Williams and Evan Pryor. That's kind of part one here. And then part two is how impressed was he with the sophomore defensive end duo of Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau?
Yeah, I think we do have three really good running backs, and we have a fourth coming in this summer, and Dallin Hayden. So that's good. They've had a good spring. Feel solid about that. I think JT and Jack, both that you asked about, have had very good off seasons. They've gotten stronger. They've gotten faster. The technique's been better, and you saw that today. And so if they continue to build this summer, then they're going to be a force. In the fall, and I think that they've really taken a Coach Johnson and the system too. And, Jim has a great way of kind of changing up the looks too to kind of keep the offense guessing. And then the minute you think they're moving, they come right at you with a bull rush. So that combination of really good technique with Coach Johnson, with the style and scheme that Coach Knowles has put together, really fits those guys and a lot of guys on defense. I mean, there's a bunch of guys today who showed up, but those guys have been strong.
One of the questions we got on our post-game instant reaction show was how much different this team was this year as compared to this time last spring. Day got asked sort of a similar question. Is he excited about where the defense is right now compared to where it was a year ago?
There's two things here. One, there's a bunch of guys that played a lot of football. I mean, you just take two guys you just explained. Then you also have, Tyler Friday coming back. You have Zach Harrison. You have Javante's played inside. You have Tehran and Geron have both played. Tyleek and Mike hasn't played as much, but certainly Ty Hamilton has, who's had a very good camp. I mean, these guys have played a lot of football. Tommy Eichenberg's now played a lot of football. Josh Proctor, they've played a bunch. And so that's exciting, which we didn't have last year. Then the second thing I think is just that combined with the new scheme and some of the stuff that we're doing on defense, it comes at you fast. And it's exciting to watch. It's exciting to see these guys have energy, be decisive, be physical. So I think when you combine the two of those things, it's exciting over there right now. And going against them every day, offense and defense, it's been a good back and forth, and it's been fun.
Last year's team had its toughness questioned a few times. That is never a good thing if you were a football team. So was that one of the reasons they decided to tackle more during Saturday's spring game?
I think last year we played some games really tough. I mean, we were really physical in some games. And then there were other times where you watch the film and you wish it was better. And so one of the things we talk about is competitive stamina. I mean, bringing it every single week, because the thing that's unique about Ohio State is you're not allowed to lose a game here. I talked to the players about this in the offseason. The Rams, they went on a losing streak this year. They lost a bunch of games, but they go play in the Super Bowl and win it all. You can't do that at Ohio State. You have to be tough week in and week out. And so, whether it was symbolic, I don't know. I just felt like it was the right thing to do at this time, was to tackle and play. But we're going to have to be physical. If we're tough and we have good leadership next year, then we have a chance to reach our goals. So today was good. We'll probably do a little bit more in August. Because we opened the game right out of the bats with obviously a huge game here, and we know that's right around the corner.
There is something of a running bit on the Buckeye Weekly podcast that 2022 is the year of the tight end. Of course, 2021 was also the year of the tight end, 2020 before that, but in Saturday's spring game, it kind of looked like maybe it really is happening this year. G. Scott had 5 catches for 40 yards. Joe Royer went up to make a big touchdown catch. What did Day see out of the tight ends this spring?
I've been impressed with the tight ends. I think losing Ruck certainly was significant, but to see Cade Stover come up and have the spring that he's had has been really good. Joe and G both have been excellent, and we're excited to get Mitch back. So when you look at those guys right there, that gives us some versatility in those packages, which is really exciting in the run game and in the pass game. And then I think Bennett Christian's been really showing up a little bit as a young tight end, and it's a developmental position. So when you look at when Cade made that investment about a year ago, you're starting to see him get the fruits of all that investment. It's the same thing with G. It's the same thing with Joe. I mean, it's just that's what a tight end is. It's very difficult to come in and play as a young player, and so those guys are developing. They're putting in the work, and we'll hope that's a position of strength for us moving into August.
So that'll do it for Ryan Day. Now on to defensive coordinator Jim Knowles. The biggest story of the spring was his arrival and the first steps to get his defense installed. So now, after those 15 practices, where does Knowles think they are in that process?
Coming out and going before the game, obviously we were very vanilla and didn't do anything really. But going into the game, I felt great about how far we have come, what we've accomplished, how much we got installed, how the players took to it. I mean, it was as good or better than I could have wished.
One of the areas where it feels like the defense saw some significant progress this spring was in the cornerback room, where Jordan Hancock, Ja'Kalen Johnson, they're now seemingly close to providing some real quality depth behind Denzel Burke and Cameron Brown. Is Knowles happy with what he's seen from those young guys there?
I was very pleased. You know, we're continuing to work on playing close to people, throwing punches, being aggressive with our coverage, and that may be a little bit of a change for them. You know, and they're adapting to it all the time. And you know, we're going against the best receiving core in the country, so I think it's going to continue to be a reason for them to get better because who they see every day in practice, and we're going to continue coaching aggressive coverage.
One of the guys who was a big topic of conversation both during and after the spring game was Kai Stokes. He was the first player, of course, to lose his black stripe this spring, and certainly seemed to validate that on Saturday. So how did Knowles evaluate what Stokes had done this spring?
Kai has had a good spring, but yeah, without watching the film, I thought he had a great game just because he showed up and flashed and looked like he rose to the occasion. You know, what you worry about with a young guy is, you know, the bright lights. And, I mean, he looked like it was no problem for him, and he really stepped up. So I'm looking at good things for him. I mean, I liked him all along, but I was impressed today.
One of the most exciting positional recruiting classes in quite a while at Ohio State is the 2021 defensive line class of Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau, Tyleik Williams, and Mike Hall. And it sounds like in his first spring with those four guys, he was very impressed with what they are and what they can be.
I love those guys. I love every single one of them you mentioned. I love the depth. And you didn't ask, but I don't really care who starts, to be honest with you, because we're gonna play a lot of guys up front, and I want them fresh and I want them hungry, and the more the better. And that whole group you mentioned, they could easily be starters. You know, I think they're that good. They've had that kind of spring, so I see us playing a lot of guys up there.
Finally, one of the biggest issues the defense had last fall was the season-ending injury to Josh Proctor in the middle of that Oregon game. Proctor kind of gradually worked his way back into a bigger role this spring as he continues to come back from that injury. Now, he played a little bit in the thud portion of the spring game, and it sounds like he's come a long way in a relatively short time with getting up to speed with Knowles' defense.
I saw when he started to get out there on the field, even not hitting anybody, you know, and then it took him like a couple practices to get back on his feet. And then I really saw improvement like the last couple practices when he was out there. So, you know, when you're away from it that long and it's a new system, and then you get back out there and everybody else is ahead and you got to catch up. And I'm not very patient because I think he's great. So hey, let's go, Proc, and you know, yelling at the coaches to meet with him extra, get him up, get him going. We need him. And then I saw a surge. You know, I saw a surge from him. He started picking it up. It started clicking, and I think he can be great for our defense.
That will do it for today's show. We will have plenty more to talk about coming up a little later on this week. We will plan to have on Ross Fulton to try and get a little bit more of an X's and O's deep dive on what he saw from Jim Knowles and his defense. I know he was excited to kind of dive into the film on that. And then probably try and have Alex Gleitman on as well to do a little more recruiting, because obviously talked to Mark Givler on yesterday's show, but there is a lot more to talk about in the coming weeks with lots of players having made visits. And then heading into sort of the spring evaluation period, recruiting is going to be a big topic over the next month or so as we head into the summer camp season. So that'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.